Hello, everyone, and hi, Tani. And let's start with the most important thing. Congrats on the title.
Thank you.
How you feel about that?
I'm good.
It should be good. Yeah, it's obviously one of the first one of many, but I was very happy to see that. Uh, it's been a while. Sorry, I've been I feel like I've been slacking, but April was a busy month. How was April for you?
Um, I guess okay.
I can see those questions aren't really going. Yeah, what was the thing that you won? I couldn't quite figure out what exactly did you win.
National Master title.
Yeah, I know, but you wanted to like they didn't give it to you just because they like you. They gave it to you because you won
Oh,
something.
should I show the games or not? No.
We could. I don't know how. Like technically, I guess we can just open an empty board and you can show me something if you want. Sure, I'd be very happy to look at some games.
Oh, I want to share my screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
we could postpone it. Yeah, I was just wondering what the event was.
It was the CCFC, Chess Club of Fairfield, Connecticut Championships. I won. I got this trophy.
Wee and
Hmm.
so on. Yeah, that's kind of very life affirming right now. So the like the general theme of what I'm going to be trying to talk about today is something that I feel it's a very important topic, but it's a topic I didn't really know how to prepare for because in my mind I associate the the idea and the concept of prophylaxis and understanding your opponent's ideas and all that with the name of Mark Dvoretsky, who is somebody I never worked with him personally, but I was part of his school for a couple of sessions when I was around 15. And he influenced a great number of people over his coaching career. He is sadly no longer with us, and it feels kind of weird and fake to be. I will be using his material because for me it's very difficult to talk on this topic without leaning on his material, but it also feels very strange because it would be a lot better if you could hear it from him or read his books, which I assume you will at some point. But the topic in general is something that a lot of people struggle with because I think it's a lot easier to think about what you want to do in a chess game, and it's a lot more fun to think about all the exciting things you can do instead of trying to figure out what your opponent is trying to do and how your opponent might be trying to counter what you are planning to achieve in the game. Uh, so I tried figuring out how to structure this, and I thought I can show you a game. I don't know why I chose this game. It just suddenly kind of popped up in my head. It's an old, very old game of mine, a very important game for my career, but I don't know if it's a particularly useful game specifically for this concept. But there's definitely some positions in it where we can talk those things. And then I wanted to show you some exercises. Some of them will be quite simple and mainly used for fun, and some of them will be quite difficult. So first, let's look at the game. This game was played in the finals of the 1997 Russian Championship. That was a very strange tournament. That was the one year when the Russian Championship they experimented with making it a knockout. It was Swiss from the moment Russia became a country after Soviet Union splintered into countries. It was a Swiss. At first, it was not even a very strong Swiss because the country was undergoing some problems and there was really no money for chess or anything. And then it gradually became stronger and stronger. And then for one year, they made it a knockout. And then they went back to Swiss, and then it finally became a round robin. And that year, I got to the final. I played, including the rapid games, I played 20 games in that tournament. and I made one draw out of those 20, which is extremely unusual for me. I normally make a ton of draws, but in that tournament, somehow it wasn't happening. And in the final, the way the tournament was going was kind of very standard. If I played the first game of the match with white, I would win 2-0 because I would win my white game, and then my opponent would need to try to play very sharply for win with white, and I would win with black as well. And if I started with black, I would lose the first game, and then I had to win on demand with white. And this is one of those games. In the final, I lost the first game very, very convincingly to Evgeny Bareyev in some King's Indian. And then I had to play this game for a win to stay alive in the final. And so yeah, let's start looking at some games. In those years, Evgeny was more or less strictly a French player. He started adding some Caracan later, but in those years he played more or less exclusively the French. We're not going to be paying too much attention to the opening. It doesn't really matter that much. I just wanted to show you some positions later on. This line is arguably the main line of the knight c3, knight f6 French. C takes d4 is a very serious move here, of course. And after queen b6, which people don't really play very much anymore, I think. White is supposed to be better after knight a4, queen a5, c3. Now, if black takes on d4, you have to interpose the move b2, b4, but you are supposed to gain an advantage after this. Even though I think at some point Alexander Morozevich was trying to prove that this is also playable for black, and he made some interesting discoveries in these lines. But Evgeny, for this particular game, he chose a very, very closed line, just hoping to, get a very solid passive position and hold it. He played c4, b4, queen c7, g3. All of these decisions are, you can discuss whether g3 is the best move. You could also obviously just develop with bishop e2 and castles. It's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to play g3 and bishop h3 here to make it harder for black to play f5. b5, knight c5. This is also not forced by any means, but my opponent clearly was aiming specifically for this structure. And it's a kind of a cheerless way to play because obviously, I have a protected pass pawn on c5. There's not very much going for black here in terms of immediate counterplay. But it's also extremely solid, and it will be very, very difficult to break through. I played knight d4, takes bishop b7, castles rook a8. I briefly checked this particular phase of the game with the machine today, and the machine says I'm much better, maybe even winning here, but it doesn't really like what I did very much. And I think I'm supposed to play in a more aggressive fashion. But we can stop somewhere here and talk about plans, because this is where maybe you can start discussing, like, what is white trying to do, what is black trying to do, and how are those two plans interacting with each other. So obviously, for white, I'm not even going to ask you too stupid of a question. Like, we clearly need to do something on the king side here, but how exactly? Like, what would be your approach to trying to achieve some progress on the king side here?
Queen b1 and like c5.
Yeah, I did play queen b1, so it's nice that you it's very kind of nice to see you offer exactly the move that I played. But for some reason, the machine, for instance, likes queen e1 much more. And yeah, f4, f5 as an idea is obviously very, very attractive here. But then we come to the second part. Like, if f5 is what white is trying to do, how is black going to be trying to prevent it?
I don't think there's a good way to prevent it.
Not a particularly good way, no, but you can play bishop c8, for instance, because I think if I play f5 and a lot of pieces get traded on the f5 square, then maybe black's life becomes a lot more manageable, because it's going to be harder to make progress. You can also play g4 and f5. You can kind of play slower, slightly slower anyway, but you can try making sure that black cannot force you to take with on f5 with the piece, right? Um, and for black, I think bishop c8 is a very large part of what they're trying to achieve. But also, obviously, they need to at least pretend they have some counterplay. And that counterplay will be coming along the a file. So some kind of a plan of playing perhaps rook a6 and then queen a7, and then starting to, dangle the rook somewhere around the a2 square is probably not the stupidest idea in the world. Just to, have something that will be annoying and distracting for white while we're trying to make some progress on the king side. So the gameplay continued queen b1, bishop c8. I'm kind of wondering if I should be playing f5 here anyway. Ef, bishop takes f5. I think I was probably not very happy about the move g6 here. And if bishop takes c8, black can take with the queen and put the queen on e6 and try to defend this way. But even this position doesn't look very much fun. And also,
you could have went g4.
Hmm?
G4.
Where?
Here.
Instead of bishop takes c8?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was also looking at this idea. I don't know if it's any.
G4, G4.
Yeah, I know, but like, well, there's also this g4. It's a cute idea. It didn't occur to me, but I don't know if we have enough attackers. And also, black is not obliged to take, right? We can maybe make some kind of a waiting move for one more move.
Yeah, but I could also.
E6 might be interesting, but I'm not sure there is mate. Maybe black can even take, because in this position, regrettably, there is not a single check, and maybe black has enough time to consolidate. Anyway, I didn't really play the next part of the game particularly well, I think, from what I have seen on my screen today. I went for a very slow plan. I played bishop g2, rook a6, g4, queen d8. I quite like the idea of playing queen d8 because I am telegraphing that I will be playing f5. And once I play bishop g2 and g4, I think my plan once again becomes very, very obvious. I want to play f5, and then because f5 on its own doesn't really achieve very much without the bishop on h3, I'm probably want to play f6. So black is preparing to wait for me to play f5, and then the bishop from e7 will have to go somewhere. Yeah. And in that respect, putting the queen on d8, where it can be used to support the bishop on this diagonal, is quite useful. I think I'm using the word wasted. I don't know if it's true or a bit harsh, but I also spent a tempo on move queen c2 here, which I don't really know why.
Why not go like if like the time was already wasted? Why not go like queen b2 and rook a1 and trade on?
I think I was very afraid there will not be enough resources to win that position. I think it's a very valid question what you're saying. Yeah, queen b2, in particular when the queen is on d8 and it cannot get to the a file right now. So we get some kind of a position like this. And it's a very pleasant position for white, for sure. But I think I was extremely worried I will not be able to generate enough progress here to win, because just having a very beautiful position where we have this protected passer and black has no counterplay and probably will never have any counterplay in this game is not enough. You still need to find a way to get in. And I'm pretty sure my biggest worry was that it just won't be enough. And I still like the idea of trying to give mate a lot more than the idea of trying to win some technical endgame here. So I played queen c2, bishop d7, f5. And here, interestingly, the engine suggests my opponent played bishop g5 here, which I think is a very natural move. And it's not bad at all, but the engine suggests that bishop h4 is maybe even stronger because it's more difficult to do anything with this bishop. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that both in this position, let's say after f6, and in the game after bishop g5, f6, which is what I played.
I think the difference is that when the bishop is on h4, like they can go g5.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think the first thing you need to realize here is that when the bishop is outside of the pawn chain, when it's not on f8, for instance, and it has some squares to breathe, at least in the future. The biggest takeaway here from what I realized looking at this is that you don't actually need to react to f6 at all. You can just play queen a8 here with the intention of playing rook a1 and just starting to trade pieces. And there is no real attack that needs to be, black doesn't need to be panicky here about any of this. You can just allow f6 and then start with your own counterplay on the queen side.
Yeah, this isn't such an easy position.
No, it's not, and I think we both didn't really, cover ourselves with glory playing it, but it is a complicated position to play. So my opponent played bishop g5, I played f6, and once again in this position, it was better to play queen a8 and just try to play rook a1. But instead, black played g6, which is sort of logical because, well, I still need to find a threat. If I play slowly here, black will be in time to play queen a8, rook a2, and then they will have enough counterplay. And from this moment on, I think I made a few very decent decisions. So how would you proceed here? The idea for black is quite obvious, as I mentioned. Like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what black wants to do. It's a question of what we want to do in reply, because we basically have one or two moves before the counterplay along the a file comes in.
Queen f2.
I think after queen f2, the point is they can still play queen a8, h4, rook d2, rook a2, queen g3, bishop d2. And it's very unclear how we are going to make any additional progress, because with the bishop controlling this diagonal.
I mean, you could always block it with g5.
Yeah, but then how are we winning? It looks very nice, but how are we winning this position?
You're going to try to go h5 and like queen h4 take.
Yeah, I have a feeling this probably gets a little bit, it's a bit too slow. And rook
so, like,
a1.
After oh yeah, okay.
After, I'm more interested, like currently it's impossible. I was kind of wondering if you can play bishop b3, but right now it just loses to rook takes g2, which is a bit of a problem.
Why not bishop takes c3?
Yeah, that as well, yeah. But after bishop takes c3, maybe we can hope for something like this, although there's always queen f8 in the end, so I guess it's
this is lost.
A bit of an empty threat. So I played h4 here, which is a kind of a logical continuation, and at least it does one thing very well. It changes kind of the general outline of the game, because black is no longer in time with the normal counterplay. Black have to take, because like this position you will lose. With the bishop really having no moves whatsoever, eventually something bad will happen to you. I don't think you can hold.
You're basically down a bishop.
Yeah, you're just down a piece. The position is very close, so it will take a while. But yeah, you kind of know how this ends.
Eventually.
Yeah. So bishop takes h.
It's not easy to win that position still.
Yeah, and in particular if the rooks come off, it's like I think the way to win this position is just to give mate. You go rook f3, rook h3, and you start opening things up. But if, let's say, if we imagine the rooks coming off, I wonder if this is winning or not.
I think this is winning, because if you get the queen off, then you could go like king f2, king d3, then c6, like bishop b6, king d4, and bishop
yeah, I think we probably do win, but it takes a long time, and I'm not 100% convinced. But anyway, like
just plant his bishop on c6.
Yeah, but obviously nobody plays like this. Black obviously always takes. I played queen d2, and here there is a first interesting fork in the road, because obviously black can play queen f8.
But there's c6.
Yeah, and this is very cute. And it's good that it instantly realized what's happening. And after rook c6, what's the next move?
So tough. Is there g5?
I mean, I think the cutest point about this position is that despite being 2 pawns down, we can just play for complete domination. We don't even need to try to win instantly. We can play rook a1, creating a very strong threat of rook a7. They can probably play rook c7. And now the machine likes very much the move bishop d4, e3, which stops h6.
Wait, but why not g5? Why aren't you trapping the bishop?
I think after g5 they go h6, gh, king h7. I think this is like the normal way they try to generate counterplay in positions like this. And it might be strong, but you also might be giving black counterplay that they didn't have a moment ago. And it's exactly this idea that like we are 2 pawns down, but black is also completely tied up. Nothing moves, nothing really has any prospects. And in a position like this, it's very important to, if possible, to completely restrict all sources of counterplay. And the engine goes bishop e3, and then it just goes like bishop f3, king g2, and rook h1, very, very slowly, but keeping complete control over all of the possible avenues of counterplay for black. And it starts, if you give it some time, I think it starts saying that white is close to winning. But unfortunately, queen f8 is not forced. So my opponent played g5. And now there is this setup where we can't really get to the g5 pawn without trading some pieces. So I played bishop f2, which is really the only way to start getting to the black position. Takes, takes. And this is actually fine for black. I think during the game, I thought I'm doing very well, but you can still defend this with very precise play. And it becomes a little bit of a dance where white will generate some threats against the black king side, but black has, obviously the rook will be on a1 either immediately or in the near future. The bishop will come to c6. And black will combine ideas of playing d5, d4 with ideas of perhaps including the queen in the defense, while also, keeping an eye on the king side so they don't get mated. And one way to hold it is to just play h6, let's say bishop f1, rook a1, rook h2, and queen f8. And surprisingly for me, there is no way to get in, although this is very, very scary. And I suspect it holds specifically because black is in time to meet rook h3, bishop c6, and queen h2 with queen a8. And after rook takes h6, this is just a perpetual.
Just in time.
Yeah, because if you don't do it straight away, if you play king h7, you've lost, because rook h5 pretty much ends the game. You can't stop rook takes g5, and you no longer have any.
Oh yeah, because king h4, right? No.
You mean?
Can you go back?
Yeah. Where?
Oh, after but let's say he goes queen a8. Oh, you have queen c2, right?
Yeah. It's just queen c2. Yeah.
No, go back one more.
Yeah, queen a8. Yeah.
Queen a8. Wait, go back. After queen f8, king h7 and rook h5.
Yeah.
Yeah, this position. Yeah, it's like I think.
But then rook h6.
I think they can't go queen a8 because of there's queen c2.
No, just rook h6. I was wondering. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be fancy, right? You can just go.
I forgot.
You can just go rook h6. Yeah, and this is why the king has to be on g8, because this cannot be a check. If you allow this to happen with check, you are just one tempo short. So this is one way to hold it. And if I don't go for the whole rook h3, queen h2 plan and play something like king f2, bishop c6, bishop e2, trying to improve slowly, the engine suggests that something like this actually holds, but it doesn't hold easily, but it does hold, because black always has just enough counterplay. But
king on d4, that wouldn't be safe.
Yeah, it's I've had a game once in my life where in a position full of pieces I went like king c3, king d4, king e3, and I was very proud of myself. But I don't think in this particular position it will come off.
No, I remember the Nigel Short game, the king ball.
Oh yeah, that is a famous one. Yeah, that is a very, very famous diagram. So my opponent gave a check, and after bishop f1, he played king h8, trying to not play passively, trying to give up the pawn on g5 to maybe find some squares for the queen. And actually, the engine here really dislikes my idea of not taking on g5. They say you should be taking and playing queen h6, and you're much better. But I wasn't really in the mood for giving black pieces squares, and I was very much trying to control every single idea of counterplay here. For instance, here, as I mentioned, like the idea of king h8 is quite obvious. Black is trying to as quickly as possible get this queen to the one good square it has on the entire board, which is probably g6, apart from the a file. So I played rook h2, queen g8, and rook h6, trying to once again keep everything completely stalemated. Here we are coming to the critical moments of the game, because we were also both very short on time, and play became very, very nervy. My opponent played bishop c6, king f2, d4, which is generally a very decent idea in these types of positions, because you do need to activate some pieces. I took with the queen. He played queen a8, which is still not a mistake, although the engine for some reason prefers queen f8. I played bishop e2, and here's somewhat shockingly, black only saves this position by one very, very specific sequence of moves. And
rook h1.
Rook h1, I think those endgames are lost. I think you just lose those endgames, because after takes, let's say I play. I don't even know exactly how, but I don't think it might not even be very difficult. I think most of them are just lost, as long as I don't blunder some perpetual. I don't know, like queen
e6.
Yeah, queen e3, and then run towards the d2 square, or queen d6 and then run towards safe squares on the queen side. No, you have to, and once again, let's try to approach this slightly artificially. Let's try to approach this from the kind of preventive thinking. Like you should ask yourself, what is white trying to achieve? I have sort of stabilized, and I'm obviously I want to go back to giving mate on the king side here. So my mating ideas here will be, I probably want to play queen e3, attacking this pawn, and the rook on h6 probably needs to go back at some point, either to h5 or maybe even all the way back. And you have to somehow organize your position in such a way that you have a way to deal with this idea. And the solution here is quite striking. At least it was to me when I saw it on my screen today. Because
Did you win this game?
Yeah, I won the game, and I eventually won the tournament. Yeah.
Nice.
So the point here is, let me show you what happened in the game. My opponent played rook a2, which looks like a logical move, creating like bishop f3 threats. But now after queen e3, the pawn is hanging, and he played queen d8. I think he probably was expecting queen d8 to be enough, because now rook e2, queen d3 will be the reply to queen takes g5, of course, and just generally queen d3 is a very strong idea. But I played king g3. He played rook c2, once again trying to keep things under threat. And here a very, very strong move, rook h2, covers everything, and I am starting to generate very strong threats. In particular, as happened in the game, for instance, he played queen g8, and I just traded everything and won that queen ending. So this is sort of what you're trying to prevent, this kind of a setup. And the solution here, I'm not going to torture you, asking you to say exactly what the solution is, but you have to, if you know that the idea here will be to play queen e3 and probably rook h2 in some order, and you need to be able to protect the pawn on g5 and your king, the solution is very, very remarkable. You play bishop h1, creating a very strong counterplay idea of queen g2 check, of course. White goes rook h2, which is very much part of the plan. And now you need to prepare for queen e3. And the way to prepare for queen e3 here is to play king g8, seemingly making the threat of queen e3 even stronger, and then playing h6. And this setup turns out to be impossible to shake, because whatever white does, black comes in with some counterplay and has enough counterplay.
I think black at this point is gonna go queen c6, queen b7, queen a8.
Pretty much, yeah. And if you play queen h3, I assume the solution is queen e4, and you know, you might lose like this with white, because now there's a lot of threats suddenly.
Draws, I guess.
Hmm?
Oh, but queen e3, there's queen b1 now.
Yeah, queen e3, you know, black has at least a draw, and also as you mentioned, yeah, queen b1 might just be very problematic for white already, because there's all kinds of threats. Yeah, I maybe I can still survive by playing king g3, but I'm not entirely convinced, because it's possible that the king just gets chased down and mated here.
Like, you can't go queen f2 because of queen c3 on rook.
Yeah, I think we probably are lost now, because yeah, rook f2, queen g1, king h3, bishop
and
g2.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, and something bad will happen. I don't know exactly what, but we know that something bad will happen here. It's just, it's a feeling you have in this position.
Oh, I mean, you could actually, you don't have to go through all the stress. Go back.
Yeah.
Go back one move. After queen g1 and king h3, you could just go rook a3 and win the pawn.
Yeah, white is completely stalemated. Yeah, I quite like this as well.
Yeah, it's like a stalemate.
Yeah, you just can't move anything at all. Yeah, I like rook a3. Rook a3 is a nice solution as well. But instead, yeah, I think it's very difficult to realize. I'm pretty sure my opponent saw bishop h1, but to realize that in this position you can actually spend 2 tempi just preparing and playing h6 into the path of this rook on h2, I think is a very, very difficult thing to figure out. And you do need to kind of ask yourself, what are you fighting against and how you can stop it. That would be one way, I think, to approach this solution. And in the game, there's really not very much to say. Once we got to this position, if the queens come off, this endgame now is quite comfortably winning for white, because we can combine the threats of you know, somehow getting the bishop to this diagonal, which will.
There's rook c2.
Yeah, rook c2, we just go rook h3.
Oh.
And eventually we will either trade bishops or get the bishop on the b1 h7 diagonal, and the game will be lost. After king g8, king e1, for instance, the engine already indicates that now bishop f3 is a threat, because after rook c3, bishop c6, and I guess bishop b7, the c pawn just wins. So yeah, this is just bad for black. And in the game after queen g8, as I mentioned, I traded everything. And in this queen ending, you basically just need to realize what your winning plan is. And once again, a little bit of attention to your opponent's counterplay here goes a long way. So how do you think we win here?
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's no winning variation just yet. I'm like, sort of in terms of general plans, how would you approach winning this position?
Queen e3, queen d4.
Yeah, exactly.
Queen c5.
You need the queen. You need to get the queen to some kind of good squares without allowing any kind of counterplay, right?
Like, my point is queen e3, queen d4, make a move, then queen d6, and then you can push c7.
Yeah, if the queen lands on either d6 or d7, I think the game generally ends. But yeah, it makes sense to get your king to better squares first. So I played king g3, king g2 here. I did a little bit of a dance with the king here, and here I thought it might be useful for me to get the king to h8, because black really does not have useful moves anymore. So I played king f1. Now, if
I have a question, can you go back?
Sure. Where?
One back, one back, one back, one back. This position, right?
What are you like? Depending on what you want to ask.
Oh, queen e3. Why not queen e3?
Black to move here, so maybe here. Yeah, I mean queen e3 is fine. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a wrong solution necessarily, but I think the point here is that
this is easier to win. I think this is easier to win.
Maybe, yeah. I'm looking at this. I don't know exactly why it wasn't played. I think it's fine as well.
Yeah, because if queen d5, c7, if queen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had some reason that was worrying me. I think maybe queen d5, c7, no, queen d7 maybe was worrying me.
There is.
Yeah, I think you know I'm not sure. Maybe white is winning here, but it's exactly some kind of an idea like this that you really don't want to blunder here.
Oh, I think queen d4 works. Queen d6.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
If queen c8, then queen e7. Oh, but then you have king g8.
I have king.
Tricky.
You don't really need to, and I think what I'm trying to say is, if you spend like 5 moves getting your king to better squares, none of these counterplay really exists anymore. So I played king g3. I got the king to f1 here. I think here the point was that if black spends a tempo on queen b6 with the king on f1, I think I can play c7, right? And then get the queen to f8, because with specifically on this square, the king cannot be checked from any square.
Yeah, the best thing is that you can, if it's like if it was online, then you could pre-move it, and there's actually nothing to stop the pre-move.
Yeah, that's a nice queen
d7. And you have 0.02 seconds.
I think I did this once in my life, and I was very happy. And after king h8, I played king f2, and now with the king on f2, after king g8, we are ready to play queen d4. Yeah, and we are coming in. And realizing that my opponent played h5, but even after h5, we can still play queen d4. And the same reasoning applies. We want queen d8, queen f8, and there is nothing stopping mate. So he played king h7, I played queen d7, queen b6 on king e2, and here he resigned because we are just collecting absolutely everything. Yeah. So it's a memorable game for me, but I don't know, how well it illustrates anything. But there are definitely some positions here where you can discuss, controlling your opponent's counterplay, playing, respecting your opponent's counterplay, and trying to minimize it. And now I wanted just to give you some positions. I'll start with some kind of half joking positions, but some will be, like the last couple will be quite serious. So this position is from a game between Zurab Azmayparashvili and Chinese player Yajang Chong. And here, I mean, I want you to find the way to win. But also, like, the big question is, do you take on a5 here?
Yes, I think you do.
And this is where, like, it helps to know some of the ways that you can kind of make a mistake, because queen a5 is actually, like, I don't know if there's only one way to win in this position, but it's definitely not queen takes a5 for a very spectacular reason.
I'll see, of course. Wait, I think I see a there.
There's a very beautiful solution here for black, which saves the game.
Oh my gosh. Wow, queen d6, king a8. Oh man.
Yep.
And then in b4.
Yeah, and after b4, I guess you start giving checks, and it just becomes a perpetual quite comfortably. Wow. But instead of that, there's also a very cute way to win the game here, using geometry. And once again,
geometry. Okay.
So, well, sort of geometry, but like you in the queen ending, if you have a way to completely stop your opponent from giving you useful checks, that is something that is obviously very beneficial to you. And there is a way here to make sure that black does not have any good checks while also creating threats. And you also mix in a little bit of the, pawn endgame knowledge, obviously. That would be useful here.
I wish I had this position as white, as black to move.
Ah.
Ah.
No, but then, yeah, no, hang on. But then queen h6 check might be a draw, no? Because if you play queen b6 check, I will take, I will play a4. And force you to take with the pawn, and then it's a draw. So this is what we're trying to avoid.
No. Where's the duelist?
So is there a way to stop those checks? Like we kind of mind those checks.
Queen c6.
Yeah, we can play queen c6. So now if queen d3, we can obviously play queen b5. Yeah, and the difference is, of course, that we can take with the king here. This is like the great big difference.
Oh, I have queen c6 in my mind the whole time, and then I just
and after queen b4.
I thought there's queen b4.
One final move, yeah.
Queen b5, but
well, queen b5. Once again, yeah. Let's hang on. Maybe not king c7 because here queen a5 wins. Yeah. So we go king c8. Yeah.
It's a draw.
And this endgame is a draw. But there's a cleverer solution here.
Clever one.
Yeah, you can actually. It's a very spectacular position because it's not a study. It's a position from a live game, but it really looks like a study because it's not very often that you can make two quiet moves in a queen ending like this on a completely empty board.
Oh, queen d5. That's awesome.
No, queen d5 we can probably find queen something.
D7 maybe?
Yeah, well, queen d7 is a very clean solution here. Wow. Just creating a threat of queen d8 mate, and black has no checks and is completely helpless. So you just resign here. Okay, next position is a study by Meller from 1916, and it looks like there's really nothing to talk about here, right? Because black only really has one piece that has moves, and we have two passers.
Okay, the first thing I think of is b3, stopping all his counterplay.
Yeah, but what kind of counterplay? These pawns are like, there are 3 pawns on the b file. They aren't really going anywhere.
Actually, b3 doesn't seem right. I just want to use my brain, not like finding the actual.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you see this position, and I think you kind of instinctively realize that b3 might be the solution, right?
Yes, because
and b3 actually is the solution. But I want you to figure out why. I don't like you're using your you already, at your very young age, you already kind of have an understanding of how things work when I show you a study. The solution, the solution will be the most stupid move in the position, right? It will be something that doesn't make any sense. But I want you to approach it from the other side and not just tell me what the solution is, but tell me why it is the solution here. Like, what are we trying to prevent?
I played b3 because I want to prevent him from getting as many tempes as possible. And I want this position for black to move.
That's actually not it. There's a specific thing here that black can try to achieve, which you are stopping by playing b3. It's not about passing the move to black or any of those concepts which you will occasionally see. There's just a very, very specific plan that you're trying to stop. And I mean, the usefulness of this in a practical game, you will never really get this. Those ideas don't really exist very much, apart from maybe one very specific example I can name. Yeah, go on.
It doesn't stop bishop c.
No, we can ignore bishop c6. We
Bishop
can just
c6 is the idea.
no bishop 6. We can just play d6,
No,
right?
no, no.
If
Bishop.
if they do this, we can just do this, right?
I thought it was a pin. B3 is stopping. Oh, B3 is stopping. Oh, I don't find it.
So the point here is, and yeah, I mean, I wanted to see, I wanted to see if you will spot it, but it's just such an unusual idea.
I want to figure it out.
Okay, I'll give you a minute. Let's
B3, B4, bishop A4, B5.
Exactly. Yeah. If white just goes in with their plans, in this position, suddenly I mean, either you play h7 and it's a draw, or you can play king g3 and lose. Because the black queen queens first, and you probably lose this position, I assume. Maybe you make a draw, but you definitely don't win. So you actually are stopping this self-stalemate. And if you allow b3, you no longer win, because you cannot really stop all of those things from happening.
You can, king. Oh my gosh, that
is beautiful. So you play b3, and now black no longer has this one miraculous idea, and then you just go d6 and h4 and so on, and you win very, very comfortably. Okay, next one. This one is kind of famous. It's from a game played in the Gibraltar Open in 2006. Maria Klinova played white, and a player named Spence played black. And I want you, like, without giving too much away, I want you to tell me what's the most natural move in the game here. We're obviously in check, so what's your initial reaction here?
Initial reaction. Okay, my first reaction is queen f3.
Exactly. I think the game actually continued. If I remember correctly, I feel ashamed because I might be now lying about what happened in the game. But I think the game continued queen f3 and black resigned.
Oh wow! Because queen f3 doesn't work because the queen takes f3 and rook takes a no.
No. You're almost there, but not quite.
Oh, yeah. Because of
Come on. Get in. There's a specific move order here that works.
No. Yeah, there's a specific move order. What is this? Oh. Oh man.
So what are we trying to achieve here?
You're trying to achieve 95 with a check.
No, but you're trying to get something that is not there. And once again, this is very much like a study, because I can sort of, if I'm not wrong, and if black actually resigned here, I think it's very understandable, because the way not to resign here, you just don't see very often in practical chess.
Wait, I think, is it rook takes h3?
I think starting with rook h3 doesn't work.
Queen g7. Then.
Yeah, but you can do this. G7. Yeah, but and this is such a beautiful idea that you can't really even blame the player who didn't find it in a game, because when do you ever see a position like this in a practical game?
I never ever will ever.
Yeah, with the pawn on f5 blocked and the knight on c6 pinned, and this being a stalemate.
You know what I missed? I missed that the queen could just take on d7.
Yeah, exactly. After queen g7, white cannot play something like this, because you
actually lose now.
Yeah, you just pick up a full rook and white loses. Yeah, and then the trick becomes quite simple, because if somehow you are inspired enough on the day to realize that queen f3 allows this queen g7 trick, then it's very easy to calculate a line starting with king h4, and then you just you quietly avoid all the checks, and yeah, you just don't allow any pins. There is never any stalemate now, because the knight has moves, and you are completely winning.
The king on a8 is so innocent. Just like
yeah.
Don't let me.
And now I want to show you some more serious examples. In fact, I think I'll show you one last position because we are running a bit long. So I'll show you a really difficult position, but a very nice classical position from a candidates match in 1974. It's a game between Spassky and Karpov, which I shamelessly borrowed from one of the Dvoretsky books. And this is a sort of a very dry technical endgame where black to move, we have to talk about plans, and we have to talk about, there will be like a sequence of maybe 5 moves here, during which Karpov will be doing both sort of proactive planning and also very, very deep and very accurate play against what his opponent is trying to achieve. So let's talk about this from the white perspective. If you are white here, what are you hoping? What are you hoping to achieve here? What are your like dream next 2 moves?
My dream next 2 moves are bishop a3 and f3.
Yeah, that's holding the position together. But if let's say if I asked you, do we have any kind of proactive ideas which actually improve our position, not just make it feel slightly safer, but improve actively, like make it get us closer to equality? Because I think we, despite white having, let's start from the beginning. Who do you think is better here?
Black.
Yeah, because the passer on d6, it seems like it's a far progressed passer, but it's actually completely blocked. It's quite weak in many positions. The knight on e4 can be undermined with g6 and f5 eventually, and the bishop on b2 is very restricted by the pawn chain.
It's a far progressed blocked passer.
Yeah, and it's in positions like this, it's definitely more of a weakness than a strength. And the king on e6 is much better than the king on g2 as well, of course. This being an endgame, nicely centralized active king which participates in the game is a very, very big plus. So if we talk about, white doesn't really have very many active plans in this position, but they do have one, I think, specifically one.
One active plan. Okay. I mean, b4 and
Exactly.
a5.
Yeah. We want to go before an a5. We want to drive this bishop away from good squares. If it has to go back to d8, yeah. If it has to go back to d8, I think our life improves quite a bit. So we have established like the first part of it. We've established that perhaps there is something our opponent is trying to do here, and something that we probably don't want to allow them to do. So how do we go about things then? If this is what we are playing against.
I mean, you could go a5.
Yeah, we can and we should go a5 here. It stops before from happening, and after that we can return to our plans of perhaps g6 and f5. White played bishop a3, which is I was happy when you mentioned this move because it is a good move. It reinforces the pawn on d6. It also frees up the knight on e4 a little bit. Perhaps we can start planning for some kind of knight c3, knight b5 in some kind of positions. We can also, maybe if we're lucky, get to trade some pieces on the c5 square, although pins along the c file probably mean that this is not possible.
Is this 1974?
Yeah, that's Canada's 1974, yeah.
Last round, right?
Are you trying to actually look it up?
No, I'm just saying. I wanted to see if it was 1974. Cause I thought you said 1994.
No, that's an old game. That's a game played in a cycle which led to Karpov qualifying to play Fischer in '75, and then obviously that match never happened. And here, the idea that Karpov here came up with is quite spectacular because you don't often make moves like this and once again, we kind of need to talk about plans. We do have this plan, but White probably wants to play knight c3, knight b5, probably by starting with rook c2, c4.
Yes.
And then after g6, f5, even knight c5 check might become possible with a lot of, like, if you just start calculating some line like this, I think you will come to the conclusion that
It's probably a draw.
it's close to a draw. I'm not sure if it's actually a draw, but it's very close to a draw. The margins are very, very fine here. And Karpov here makes a move that I think is quite stunning, because you take your rook, which is standing fine on e8, and you place it on a file where currently nothing is going on at all. But what you're saying is, I want to, apart from our g6, f5 plans, which are still sort of in place, but you can always go back to those. I also want to generate the idea of playing bishop g4 and opening up the queen side with b7, b5. And it's obviously much stronger to start with rook b8. If we have to make all of these moves, in a row, if we start with bishop d4, we are allowing rook c7, and we are not ready to play b5 yet. So we are giving White a very, very important tempo here. After, let's say, rook b8, bishop c5 becomes, yeah, bishop c5, I'm probably blundering some material. Actually, I'm not, no. This is actually playable because rook takes b7 exists.
No, why not just bishop takes c5?
Bishop c5, knight c5, yeah.
But then knight takes.
Yeah, but these rook endgames, I think you're giving White a lot of additional counterplay here. You might not be able to win this. Like,
play b6. You could just play king takes d6.
No, but this you definitely don't win. This is just a very, very equal rook endgame.
Actually, yeah, it is a draw because.
Yeah, this is just a draw. If you want to play for a win, you have to play b6. But then after rook c7, you've allowed a lot of very unnecessary counterplay, and it feels like you're probably not winning this anymore. So if you want to prepare this plan, it makes a lot of sense to actually start with this extremely quiet move, rook b8, preparing for the rook potentially landing on c7. So Spassky, because he doesn't really have anything particularly active to do, if you play knight c3 with the rook still on c2, you can obviously pin everything with rook c8, and that's very, very awkward for White. So he goes rook c4, Black plays bishop d4. Now if you play rook c7 and allow b5, this is, I think, a much improved version of the same endgame, and it's not very safe for White at all. And Spassky goes f4 instead. And here, one final very, very nice controlled move by Karpov, because White clearly wants to play f4, f5. We have the option of playing b5 straight away, but White can take, give this check, give a check from c3, and a lot of pieces have come off, and also rook c7 is a very, very serious source of counterplay now that the knight on d7 is not protected, now that the king has been driven away from this very nice square on e6. Because this kind of a construction with the king on e6 and knight on d7, as long as White cannot really touch it, it's very, very stable. But once those two pieces become disconnected, there is definitely a lot of counterplay connected with rook c7 in the future. So White probably saves this endgame. So Karpov takes one more tempo to just stop f5 check from happening. And here Spassky played knight g3, Black took, and liquidated into this endgame, occupied an open file. Very important move here, making sure that the Black rook is more active than the White rook, and there's a lot of threats. And after rook d3, g5, there has been a lot of trading in the last few moves. Material has become even more reduced, but White still has weaknesses everywhere, and the task of holding this endgame is quite difficult. And Spassky actually did not manage. He ended up losing this game. And I think this sequence, starting from a5 and the entire sequence of a5, rook b8, and then also not allowing knight c3 here, playing bishop d4 just here, and not allowing a5 check in this position is quite an impressive, very kind of dry technical sequence. But It's something that I think should appeal to you quite a bit because we've discussed it earlier. You do, at least you say you quite like dry technical squeezes,
Yeah,
and yeah,
I like the yeah, you're right.
and then this is a very very good example of somebody who is arguably one of the best players in the history of chess at doing exactly this. So I wanted to show you this snippet because it's quite impressive in its own very quiet way. So yeah, this is our 1 hour on sort of the loosely on the topic of controlling your opponent's counterplay, thinking about your opponent's plans, and prophylactic thinking in general.
Can I see the rest of the game? Just like a quick brief.
I don't have it here. I can find it for you in a second. Hang on a second. I mean, it'll take me 30 seconds or something, and I'll show you one more. Why is everything suddenly appearing on the screen when it shouldn't? Yeah, I can probably manage not to do that again. Yeah, hang on.
Thank you.
One sec. Once, yeah, almost, yeah.
Oh yeah, you ended it.
Almost.
Things
Things are appearing and disappearing everywhere. So the game continued. After g5, Spassky played bishop b2. Karpov played b6. Once again, a very quiet move, I think very much in the spirit of continuing to torture your opponent, because rook c6 already is quite strong seemingly here, but you don't have to do it straight away. He spends a tempo on b6 instead. Hang on. My mouse disappeared onto the other screen. b6, bishop d4, rook c6, bishop c3. And here he doesn't even cash in the pawn on d6 yet, because those endgames probably are trickier to win than they look originally. Instead, he plays.
Karpov won this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So black played rook c5. I guess he was also trying to wait until the adjournment. It was definitely in the adjournment phase of chess regulations. So I'm pretty sure those rook maneuvers were just trying to gain time and trying to formulate the right plan. And here, instead of picking up the pawn on d6 and leaving himself with a knight on d7 against the bishop on c3, he actually liquidates into a rook endgame. This, like, for me, this would be an extremely scary decision in terms of how to convert my advantage, because I would be very, very worried I'm allowing some sort of counterplay I should not be allowing. But Spassky didn't really play this position particularly convincingly. He played b3, b4 here, looking for some active counterplay. And after e4, rook d4, king e5, rook d1, and a takes b4, I think it's starting to just look very clearly winning for black. And from this moment on, I can show you how the rest of the game went, but I think from here,
yeah,
you can probably see this is not going to end well for white. And it didn't. The game, yeah, it's actually not very many moves left. Yeah, show us the trophy again. What does it say? Yeah, CCFC Club Champion 2021. Yeah, and yeah, let's end the show on exactly the same thing that we started with. I'm very happy for you. My most sincere congratulations, and I'm sure it's just the first of many.
Man, thank you.
So next one will be.
Wait, do like when you get your title, does it like automatically show? Like, how does it show? Do they like send you a message on chess.com or something?
I'm not entirely sure how that works on websites.
Like, because when you submitted a title, did you?
Yeah, but like when I was getting my titles, there were no websites like this.
Oh,
It was long enough ago that I did not have to go through that procedure. Like when I got my first account on a chess website, I was already a grandmaster of longish standing, and I did not have to go through it. But I assume if you just message them, they will update your profile.
okay.
It shouldn't be difficult. And honestly, I would have assumed they would do it on their own already, but maybe they haven't yet because it's very fresh news. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
But yeah, I think this is going to be very easy for you. It's not going
Yeah.
to be a
Bye.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the next one will be in around 2 weeks ish.
The next one.
I'm playing in something next week, but I'm going to be around later.